How's it going? This is Davor, and in this video we're going to talk about mirroring elements on RTL websites. And oh, it's that drip, baby. We've got the nice Webflow pullover today, and so I think this tutorial is going to be a special one. Let's get started. So when we mirror elements on, for example, English Arabic websites, it's important to do it for a few things. For example, we have arrows that we want to maybe flip around. We have lots of icons that we maybe want to flip around, and so if you go to the RTL styling page, you can see right again, if you remember this one right here, check it out if you haven't yet. You go down here to bidirectional icons, and you can see that when you build English Arabic websites, you want to be able to flip icons around, many of them. For example, the arrows, the question marks, some of them you don't want to flip around, and so what we do is we can control which elements flip around and which not, using certain classes, attributes, and custom properties. And so let's go into Webflow, and if we go to the RTLflow elements page of our RTLflow style guide, which of course as always is in the description, you can clone it. You can go down and you can see that right at the bottom, right here, you have a few things that you can use. Okay, you have an attribute which you can use to mirror elements on any locale. And you have three options to mirror elements on a specific local. So now you can see it's actually LTR, and I think, let me see here. Okay, I think it's saying LTR because I've set the body to RTL for no reason. So let me remove this, right? So when you build a website that's multi-language in Webflow and it has left to right and right to left languages, what you want to do is you want to choose your primary local. In this case, let's say it's English, right? And then our secondary local is going to be Arabic. And what's going to happen is you want to, after choosing the local, you want to go in here into the RTLflow elements page. And for the body, you want to choose the direction that fits the primary local language direction. So in this case, it's left to right because English is running right to left. All right. Getting some hydration, as you can see. It's a very good bottle. So when your primary local is English, you want to set direction LTR on the body. Okay, it has practical reasons you will see in a second. But let's go back to the home page, and now let's actually build out an example of when we need to mirror elements. So I'll go in here. Let me quickly check. I think, okay, because I've tried this already before, just so I know how this would look like. So let's create a wrapper. And we'll make a combo class is, I don't know, let's call it example. And we're going to make it 80 view height. And we're also going to make it relative. And inside of it, I will add a image. And that image is going to be this one. And we're going to run it into the background. So I will get my position. I'll set it to absolute. Oh, there we go. Absolute position, 100%, 100%. Cover it, and we're going to set the z index to be 0, and then above it I'm going to add a gradient. All right, and so that gradient, you'll see what's going to be about in a second, but let's make it like this. Yeah, 100%. Gonna add a gradient, and let's make it dark blue, maybe like this on one side, and on the other side I will add the same dark blue, with the exception that the opacity is going to be like 25% maybe. Let's change the degree to 90%. Yeah, that's not bad actually. So like this, yeah. Maybe we're going to make this 35%, yeah. And so that's going to be the background gradient, and this is going to be the background image. And inside of this wrapper, we're also going to add a div, which is going to have a title and a button. And so that one is going to be relative. It's going to be 2. Gonna do again 100%, 100%. Gonna have a flex box. It's gonna go from top to bottom. We're gonna align stuff to the start. And it's gonna be, gonna call it content. Instead of this, we're going to add a heading. This is a text, yeah? There's a text. I'm gonna make this white. And then I'm going to add a button, so I'm gonna go to RTLflow elements. Actually, I'm going to go visit the Styleguide page. And on the Styleguide page, I will get myself a nice button which has an arrow. Right, this one. Actually, it has an icon, but we're going to replace it with an arrow. And you're going to see a quick trick regarding SVGs. And I'm sure you don't know about it. I'm going to give this a gap. The comment box is going to have a gap. I'm going to replace this icon with an arrow. So I have an arrow here. I'm going to open this up in a new tab, and I will go and do it like this. So this is basically the source code. I'm going to copy the source code. I'm going to go into the icon embed. I'm going to replace this one. And I'm going to fill it in white. Essentially, we make the arrow white, as you can see, yeah? So I can also do it black, and then you don't see it because it's black. And the background is also black. But this is the arrow that we're going to have now, okay? And so I'm going to call this action, yeah? And this is a website. So now that we have this example, what you can see, of course, now that we have two languages, and in this example I want to show you in two languages what happens. So if we go to the Arabic version, you will see that the text and the buttons align to the right side. However, the gradient should flip around, which it doesn't, and the icon, in this case the arrow, should also flip around. And so there's multiple ways we can approach this. First thing we can do is we can always use an attribute that will flip the thing around. So we can go to the Arabic locale, and we can choose the background gradient, and we can add an attribute called rf-icon-mirror. And so this flips the gradient around, and as you can see, there's a globe, so this element is localized, which means the attribute is only on the Arabic local. We can also do the same for the arrow. We can go in, you can say rf-icon-mirror. As you can see now, we have the English version, which has no attribute, and we have the Arabic version, which has an attribute. So that's one way you can flip this around. I'm going to remove those again. Of course, this works, but imagine you have like 20 pages and you have like 50 different buttons. You don't want to go into the secondary local and just change this manually using this attribute. So what I would like to do instead is actually what I would use, for example, a combo class. So I would go into this gradient and I would add a combo class. And so here's the trick. When your primary language is left to right, you want to use RTL-icon-mirror. So we can go and add a combo class of RTL_icon-normal-line-mirror. Okay. And so if I now go to the Arabic version, you will see again that the gradient has flipped around and has no attribute. So the class actually flips the element around based on the directionality. And we can do the same thing, and instead of using the class, what we can do is we can also use an attribute. So I can also again remove this, and I can go and I can add an attribute of rf-rtl-icon-mirror. And so the element will only mirror, if it has the directionality of RTL. So you can see the example right here. I can test this on the body of the English local. I can also go into the Arabic version. It will be the same. And then I have one more option you can have. Let's maybe rename this. We can call this button arrow. Well, actually, I'll not rename it. I will just duplicate it. All right, let's assume we have a button arrow that we reuse on multiple occasions. We could use the attribute. We could also use the class, but it would be easier to just apply that CSS style to the button. So what you can do is you can go into custom properties, and you're going to write transform. And here's the part that's interesting. You can mirror an element using transform scale x -1. That mirrors an element. So if I go and I write scale x -1, the element will be mirrored and will stay mirrored no matter the direction. However, we want the mirroring only to happen in RTL. And so I created a variable which I will show you in the custom code bit. And it's called rtl-icon-mirror, which will have the same effect actually. So you can see no attribute, no combo class. But if we go to Arabic, you can see that the arrow has actually mirrored. And I can now also reuse this button, and the same thing will happen with the other buttons. Right? Again, I can go to the body and I can set the direction for testing purposes as well. You can see that the arrows have actually flipped around. Okay, so if you have an arrow that you want to always mirror around, use transform. If you have only one arrow that you want to flip around, then you use icon mirror like this. And if I change it to RTL, you can see that only this arrow is flipping around, right? And so those are the three options you have. And let me go to the code, to RF global styles. And I will show you right up at the top, or close to the top. You have this code, which it just basically identifies which direction the element has. And so if you have a class of rtl-icon-mirror and the direction is RTL, it will apply the mirroring, which in this case is transform scale x -1. Same for the attribute, right? The same thing is also possible if you have LTR-icon-mirror. And if you use LTR-icon-mirror, an element will flip around on LTR languages, on secondary LTR languages. And what I also have here is I have variables which I created. And so this variable RTL-icon-mirror is set to none in the beginning. On RTL, it's set to scale x -1, which means that the element will flip around on RTL. And on LTR, it's actually not here at all, which means that it will have the root value, which is none. So the transforming will not happen, the element will not mirror. And that's essentially a bit of the code background of how this works. Now, let's do another example, okay? RTL, any attribute or class or variable that we use in RTLflow, if it has an RTL, it means it's only supposed to apply on elements on the secondary locals which have an RTL language. So only on elements on secondary RTL locals. That's when RTL-icon-mirror and other RTL elements or RTL modifications should apply. There's also the example where we could have a right to left language as a primary and then a secondary language which should be left to right. So let's do this as an example. Let's switch up and maybe use Hebrew as the main language. And let's maybe use German for a secondary language, like this, yeah? So what we can do now is, as you can see, the direction of the website has changed already. So what I will do actually is I will replace the arrow and we'll make it run the other way around. So let me actually get this arrow quickly and I will check the source code. I will replace the source code, the old code, with this code. Now I have an arrow that's going left to right on default. And so if your primary local is right to left, then you want to use LTR-icon-mirror. What happens on the RTLflow elements page, if your primary local is, for example, Hebrew, you want to set the body to be direction RTL. And you can see up here, it will say your current primary local is right to left, as opposed to left to right. This is important because you will get different classes based on your primary local. See this? You see how the thing changes, how the little text here changes. And so now, if your primary local is right to left, your secondary local is left to right, you will use LTR-icon-mirror on all locations. So let's try this again. Let's go to German, and we can see that element is already flipping around because of, let me just get rid of some of the things here. No, the background gradients is flipping around already, which it shouldn't. So let's flip this around like this, yeah. Oops, like this. No, it's the other way around, sorry. Like this, yeah. And let's see if we have any attributes that we forgot to remove. There we go. Yeah, let's remove this one. There we go. Yeah. So as you can see, I have had the attribute of rf-rtl-icon-mirror still on there, and then it's going to mess up your site. Okay, so that's why you don't use RTL-icon-mirror if your primary language is right to left. And so instead, now I'm actually going to change this around. And I will keep this in the video because I think it's going to help you understand this a little bit better of how this works. So I think we've removed everything now, and then let's go to German, and you can see that the arrow is not flipping around and the gradient is not flipping around. So in this case, what you will do is you can of course again use rf-icon-mirror, which will work. You can also use rf-rtl-icon-mirror, which will also work. Or if we go back to the German version, we can go and we can to the Hebrew version, we can go and we can add the combo class of rtl-icon-mirror, and you can also go and you can add the variable of transform scale x. Sorry, no, not scale x. Var rtl-icon-mirror. And now if I flip this around here, let's add this. There we go. Direction left to right. Things move around. If I go to the German version, you will see that it all flips around. So, big video. I know it's a bit more complicated, but essentially what you need to know is if you want to mirror elements, you can use the attribute of rf-icon-mirror. If you want to mirror elements based on the directionality, what you want to do is when you choose your primary local, make sure to also go to the RTLflow elements page and go to the body and set the direction to be the same as your primary local. So if you have Hebrew, it's a right to left language. Set there is RTL on the body. If your primary local was to be English, then you set direction LTR, and based on that you will be received the classes and the attributes and the variables that you're supposed to use on secondary locals with the opposite direction. And this is where you can mirror arrows around and make sure that those kind of icons, and background gradients flip around based on the language that you use. And again, you go to the RTLflow global styles, and you can see we have those variables which we've created right here, the RTL and the LTR-icon-mirror. And up here we have the class of LTR-icon-mirror and RTL-icon-mirror, as well as the attributes to flip around elements. And so I think we've covered everything. I hope this was not too confusing. Test it out in your own project, play around with it. And in the next video, we're going to talk about borders and how to make them RTL friendly. And Webflow, check the drip. We'll see each other in the next video.